They smile at you. They praise your kindness. And in the shadows, they sharpen their knives, not in spite of your generosity, but because of it. You have been taught that to be liked is to be powerful. This is the deadliest lie ever told. The truth? Real power is a terrifying gravity that begins when you stop asking for their love and start commanding their need. Let us speak of the currency you trade in. Every day you engage in a frantic exchange, desperate to accumulate a specific kind of wealth. This currency is called affection, likability. You print it with every needless apology, every conceded point, every time you swallow your own conviction to maintain a fragile peace. You spend it lavishly, hoping to buy loyalty, to secure your position, to build a fortress of goodwill around you. You believe you are growing rich. But this currency is a fraud. It is fiat money, backed by nothing more than the fleeting, treacherous winds of human emotion. It is a currency that suffers from hyperinflation, for the more you print, the less it is worth. The moment you offer your kindness without it being earned, you devalue not only the act but yourself. Your accessibility becomes your mediocrity. Your constant agreeableness becomes a signal of your own emptiness. You are the desperate kingdom printing endless banknotes to pay its debts, only to find that your money is now worthless paper and your treasury is empty. The people do not respect a treasury full of paper. They respect a vault filled with gold. This relentless pursuit of being liked is not a strategy, it is a servitude. You become a vassal to the opinions of others, a servant to their emotional whims. You poll their faces for approval before you dare to speak. You measure your worth by the number of smiles you can solicit. This is the most profound form of powerlessness, for you have handed the keys to your own self-worth to those who, by their very nature, will always act in their own interest, not yours. You are a ship captain who asks the waves for permission to set a course. The waves will not answer. They will simply smash you against the rocks. And the onlookers, the very people whose approval you begged for, will not remember you as kind or as good. They will remember you as the fool who drowned. They will see your ruin not as a tragedy, but as the inevitable consequence of your weakness. This is the bankruptcy of sympathy. You have invested your entire fortune in a currency that has no value in the true economy of power. But there is another ledger, a secret economy, governed by a single, brutal, and immutable law. Niccolo Machiavelli, the master anatomist of power, understood this human calculus with chilling clarity. He did not waste his time observing how men should be. He built his entire philosophy on observing how men are. And what he saw was a fundamental, unshakable truth about human nature. A man, he wrote, will sooner forget the death of his father than the loss of his patrimony, the loss of his inheritance. Do not mistake this for a simple comment on greed. It is a revelation of the core engine of the human animal. Love, loyalty, affection, grief. These are powerful emotions, yes, but they are transient. They are clouds that shift and dissipate. Property, security, ambition, self-interest. These are not emotions, they are foundations. They are the bedrock upon which a man builds his entire existence. To threaten that foundation is to threaten his very being. To protect and grow that foundation is to earn his absolute, unbreakable attention. Here lies the pivot upon which all real power turns. The idealist seeks to be loved. The tyrant seeks to be feared. But the prince, the true strategist, seeks something far more potent, far more permanent. He seeks to be necessary. You must surgically remove from your mind the desire to be a welcome guest in the lives of others. Your goal is to become the architect of the house they live in. You do not seek to be the decoration on the wall, admired for its beauty and then ignored. You must become the cornerstone, the load-bearing pillar which, if removed, would cause the entire structure to collapse into dust. Your ambition should be to embed yourself so deeply into their systems, their ambitions, and their security that the idea of acting against you becomes an act of self-mutilation. This is the law of indispensability. Respect, the absolute respect you seek, is not something you ask for. It is not something you can win through charm or force through intimidation. It is an involuntary reflex. It is the silent, grudging acknowledgement of a force that cannot be circumvented. It is the gravity you exert upon others simply by controlling that which they need to survive and to thrive. They do not have to like the sun to depend on its warmth. They do not have to admire the river to need its water. They simply orient their lives around its existence. This is the first, most difficult truth you must accept. The path to power is not a popularity contest. It is a cold, calculated journey to the center of the system, to the engine room where the real work is done. It begins by abandoning the worthless paper of affection and starting to accumulate the hard, eternal gold of necessity. The love of the crowd is a fickle and treacherous thing. It is a garland of flowers placed upon the head of the man they intend to sacrifice tomorrow. But their need is a chain you forge yourself, link by unyielding link. Comment "Necessity is power" to accept this fundamental truth, and subscribe, for in our next lesson, we will teach you how to build the iron reputation that makes your indispensability absolute. You have accepted the foundational truth. Necessity is the bedrock of dominion. An individual who is needed cannot be discarded, but necessity is a silent quality. It is a fact, but a fact that can be ignored until it is too late. It must be communicated not with words, but with the very atmosphere you create around yourself. This atmosphere is your reputation. Do not confuse reputation with a brand or a public image. Those are fragile masks, painted to please an audience. A reputation, a true one, is not something you wear. It is the shadow you cast. It precedes you into every room and lingers long after you have left. Most men build their reputations from soft materials, congeniality, flexibility, openness. They build a house of wood, warm and inviting, and wonder why it burns to the ground at the first sign of conflict. Your task is to build a fortress of iron and stone. Imposing, cold, but utterly indestructible. But how is such a reputation forged? Not through grand pronouncements or displays of force. It is built upon two pillars of masterful psychological engineering. The first is the principle of the prince's mirror. Consider the function of a mirror. It does not feel. It does not judge. It does not have good days or bad days. It simply reflects with perfect and brutal honesty whatever is placed before it. If a fool presents himself, it shows a fool. If a king presents himself, it shows a king. It does not apologize for the reflection, nor does it celebrate it. It is an instrument of pure, unadulterated truth. This must become the model for your public character. Your actions and reactions must cease to be perceived as the products of your mood, your ego, or your personal feelings. They must be transformed into inevitable consequences, as logical and predictable as the laws of physics. You must cultivate an aura of unwavering consistency. This is the new law you establish. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, administered by you with the impartiality of nature itself. When loyalty is presented to you, it is reflected with reward. When treachery is presented, it is reflected with consequence. There is no anger in the punishment. There is no glee in the reward. There is only the calm, mechanical certainty of a system operating as it was designed. This strips your adversaries of their favorite weapon, emotional manipulation. They cannot appeal to your mercy because you have replaced mercy with causality. They cannot provoke your anger, for you have replaced passion with process. They are left fighting not a man but a formula. And in the face of this formula, they have only one path to a favorable outcome: to alter their own behavior. They are forced to police themselves, to bring their own actions into alignment with your principles, for they learn that the mirror will not lie. To hate you for the consequences of their own actions becomes as absurd as hating gravity for a fall. This is a higher form of control, a sovereignty that requires no overt threats. Your reputation for unwavering consistency becomes the invisible cage in which your rivals operate. They are free to do as they please, so long as they please to do what is ultimately required. The second pillar in this architecture is the doctrine of calculated generosity. The common man believes that to be generous is to be loved, and to be loved is to be respected. As we have established, this is a fatal error. Machiavelli understood that liberality, when practiced without discipline, is a path to ruin. A ruler who gives freely will soon have nothing left to give, and he will be forced to burden his subjects to replenish his coffers. His generosity will breed not gratitude but entitlement. The people will not thank him for what he gave. They will resent him for what he can no longer provide. You must therefore treat your resources, your time, your knowledge, your favor, your capital, not as a fountain but as a vault. It is sealed, and you alone possess the key. To give indiscriminately is to signal that your resources are infinite and therefore that they are worthless. Scarcity creates value. By making your assistance rare, you make it precious. You do not help everyone who asks. You do not answer every call. You are not a public utility. You are a strategic investor. The art lies in the timing and the target. 1,000 small favors are forgotten as quickly as they are given. They create a roster of acquaintances. A single, decisive act of intervention at a moment of absolute crisis for another creates a lifetime of obligation. It forges a bond of debt. You must learn to watch, to study the ambitions and vulnerabilities of those around you. You wait. You allow them to exhaust their own resources. You allow them to face the abyss. Then, when they are at their most desperate, you extend your hand. Not as a friend, but as a savior, the assistance you offer is not a gift. It is a solution, and the price is a form of loyalty that affection could never buy. This calculated parsimony allows you to be truly generous when the moment is most opportune. You are the ruler who, having managed his treasury with discipline, can fund the decisive war or commission the great cathedral without taxing his people into misery. Your generosity, when it finally appears, is all the more brilliant for its rarity. It is seen not as a weakness, but as a strategic masterstroke. People will not say he is kind. They will whisper, he is powerful. They will learn that your favor is the most valuable commodity in their world, and they will compete, scheme, and discipline themselves for a chance to acquire it. These two pillars, when erected together, form an unbreachable fortress of reputation. The mirror of inevitability ensures that the rules of engagement are crystal clear and that defying you is an act of self-destruction. The vault of calculated generosity ensures that aligning with you is the most profitable and logical course of action. One is a deterrent, the other is an incentive. Together they create a powerful gravitational field. You do not need to chase after respect. You do not need to demand it. You simply stand at the center of the structure you have built, and you will find that the world begins inexorably to revolve around you. You have become the architect of your own power, building your throne not with charm, but with the cold, hard materials of human nature itself. You have laid the foundations of your iron reputation. The world now understands that you are a force of causality, and that your favor is a rare and precious commodity. But these are external structures. The greatest battles of a prince are not fought on open fields or in public forums. They are waged in the silent, treacherous landscape of the human mind. To truly command respect, you must master the art of psychological manipulation, transforming perception itself into your most potent weapon. This requires a profound understanding of two invisible forces: the vacuum of power created by silence and the strategic redirection of fear away from your person and onto the unyielding nature of consequence. Consider the universe of human interaction. It is a space filled with noise. People chatter incessantly to fill voids, to signal virtue, to mask insecurity. They broadcast their intentions, their anxieties, their fleeting thoughts, believing that to speak is to exist. This endless stream of sound is a weakness. The strategist, however, understands that true power does not reside in the noise, but in the silence that commands it. You must learn to wield silence as a scalpel, a shield, and a weapon. When you are challenged, questioned, or provoked, the instinct of the common man is to respond immediately, to defend, to clarify, to attack. This is a trap. An immediate response is an emotional response, a signal that your opponent has pierced your armor and touched a nerve. Your task is to do the opposite. You will meet their urgency with a profound and deliberate calm. You will hold your peace. This calculated stillness creates a psychological vacuum. Human nature abhors a void. It rushes to fill it. In that moment of your reticence, your adversary, deprived of the reaction he expects, will begin to unravel. He will project his own fears and insecurities into your silence. He will wonder, what does he know that I don't? What is he planning? He will often continue speaking, revealing more of his strategy, his weaknesses, his desperation, all in an attempt to solicit the response you are so masterfully withholding. You gain immense tactical information without uttering a single word. This silence is not passive, it is an active force. It communicates absolute self-control. It suggests a mind that is not reacting to the present moment, but is operating on a plane of deeper calculation, weighing variables the opponent cannot even perceive. It builds an aura of inscrutability, of depth. People fear what they cannot understand, and they respect what they cannot easily measure. While others define themselves with a torrent of words, you will define yourself by the immense unspoken power of your restraint. Your words, when you finally choose to speak them, will land with the force of a judge's gavel, precisely because they are used so sparingly. They become events in themselves. Silence is the dark matter of social dynamics. It is invisible, but its gravitational pull bends everything around it. Now let us turn to the most misunderstood concept in the Machiavellian arsenal, the utility of fear. The brute uses fear as a club, inspiring terror and hatred in equal measure. This is clumsy and unsustainable. Hatred is an active, energizing emotion. It fuels rebellion. The fear a strategist cultivates is of an entirely different nature. It is not the emotional fear of a tyrant's rage, but the cold, intellectual respect for an unchangeable reality. You must become the master of consequences, not the purveyor of punishments. The distinction is critical. A punishment is personal. It flows from the ego of the one in power. It feels arbitrary, emotional, and unjust. It creates resentment. A consequence, on the other hand, is impersonal. It is the logical and inevitable outcome of a choice freely made. The strategist never says, "Do not disappoint me." That frames the conflict as a personal struggle between his will and theirs. Instead, he constructs a system where the rules are transparent and the outcomes are absolute. The message becomes, actions have consequences. The focus is removed from his person entirely. When an individual transgresses a boundary you have set, you do not react with anger. Anger is a performance of weakness, a loss of control. Instead, the consequence is administered with a calm, almost sorrowful inevitability. It is delivered not as a reprisal, but as the regrettable but necessary balancing of an equation. You are not the source of their suffering. Their own poor judgment is. You are merely the agent of reality, the enforcer of natural law. This psychological maneuver is profound. It allows you to maintain order and enforce your will without generating the personal animosity that destroys rulers. People do not hate the laws of physics when they stumble and fall. They do not resent the fire for burning them when they touch it. They learn to respect the inherent properties of the system they inhabit. Your goal is to make your will synonymous with this system. Your authority becomes a feature of the environment, a law of nature within your sphere of influence. They may not like the rules, but they understand them to be immutable. Their fear is thus redirected from you, the man, to the abstract and unassailable logic of the system you command. This is a more stable, more enduring form of power. It inspires a deep, abiding respect for the order you represent, an order in which they must learn to operate to succeed. It is the respect given not to a king who might be deposed, but to the very board on which the game is played. You have learned the architecture of an iron reputation and the subtle mechanics of psychological dominion. You now stand at the threshold of ultimate authority. Before we reveal the final act that solidifies your legacy, ensure you are subscribed, for the wisdom of permanence is reserved only for those who are prepared to reshape their world entirely. The tools are in your hands. Now you will learn how to build an empire with them. An empire of the mind. The power you have cultivated, rooted in necessity, demonstrated through consistency, and wielded with psychological precision, remains a potential energy. It is a storm gathering on the horizon. To make it absolute, you must unleash it in a single, definitive act that shatters the old reality and inaugurates a new one. This is not a mere move in the game. It is the act of overturning the board and redesigning the rules. This is the founding act, the moment of rupture that transforms you from a formidable player into the very law of the game itself. Gradual change invites gradual resistance. It allows for negotiation, for attrition, for the slow erosion of your will. The Founding Act is the antithesis of this. It is a swift, surgical, and uncompromising demonstration of your radical autonomy. It is the moment where you do what everyone around you believes to be unthinkable, not for the sake of cruelty, but to establish a new and permanent boundary of the possible. This could be the rejection of a universally coveted prize to demonstrate that your values are your own. It could be the enforcement of an impossibly high standard, purging mediocrity without apology. It could be the severing of a vital alliance that no longer serves your ultimate purpose, proving that sentimentality has no place in your calculations. The nature of the act is less important than its effect. It must be a public declaration that you are no longer bound by the common web of expectations and obligations. You are a sovereign entity. Machiavelli noted that injuries should be inflicted all at once, so that by being tasted less, they offend less. This is the principle at play, but elevated from the physical to the psychological. The shock of your founding act, the pain of the old order being broken, must be acute but brief. It is a controlled demolition. It is loud, it is frightening, but it is over quickly. And in its wake, in the dust and the silence, a new landscape is revealed, a landscape where you are the sole cartographer. You have not just won, you have redrawn the map. Those who once saw you as a peer must now navigate a world of your design. The act serves as the new undisputed point of reference, the year zero from which all future interactions are measured. But this grand, disruptive act is only the beginning. A lightning strike is spectacular, but it is the silent, immense, and constant pressure of the atmosphere that truly governs the world. The ultimate victory is not the moment of revolution, but the era of unquestioned order that follows. Your final and most difficult task is the consolidation of your power into a force so pervasive that it becomes invisible. The goal is to achieve the normalization of your authority. This is the most advanced and subtle stage of dominion. It requires you to recede from view. Your power is most absolute when it no longer requires your active presence to function. After the Founding Act has established the new reality, you must operate with quiet consistency, allowing your principles to become habits, then norms, then unquestioned laws within your sphere of influence. Your will must transform from a series of personal decrees into the very foundation of the environment. The standards you set become the baseline for excellence. The boundaries you drew become the accepted limits of behavior. The consequences you established become the natural order of things. You are no longer the king who must constantly remind his subjects of his authority. You have become the architect of the castle itself. Its walls, its corridors, its very design dictate the movements of those within it. They do not feel oppressed by the walls. They simply accept them as the structure of their world. This is the state you must achieve. Your influence should be as present and as unnoticed as the air. Defying you should become not merely difficult or dangerous, but a logical absurdity, an act of self-contradiction. This is the dark power promised to you. It is not the brutish power of the loud-mouthed tyrant or the fleeting influence of the charismatic leader. It is the silent structural power of the Creator. It is the profound freedom that comes from being the cause, not the effect. It is the ability to act with pure agency, unburdened by the chaotic tides of public opinion or the desperate need for external validation. You have moved beyond the pathetic binary of being liked or disliked, beyond even the simple calculus of being loved or feared. You have achieved a state of being necessary, inevitable, and absolute. The ultimate throne is not a chair made of gold and velvet. It is the invisible system of logic, consequence, and reality that you have meticulously constructed. A system in which your dominion is no longer a question because it has become the answer to everything.